Welcome to She Sells Radio, my friend. I am glad to be here with you today. I'm in kind of casual mode today. I've actually got a couple of really important interviews. So when I'm not recording this right now, I've got like a really spiffy, we're going to use that word, green blazer that I've been wearing. But I was like, you know what? I got a little break. I'm going to get cozy. I'm going to put on my shawl. I'm going to pour some coffee into my cute new Starbucks mug. If you're watching the video, shout out to my stepmom for getting this for me. I'm really enjoying it as a Christmas gift. This is the first solo episode of the new year. If you're listening to this in real time, it is 111, which is fun, January 11th, 2024. And I am sitting down to talk with you today about how I manage my time, especially as a mom of two littles. We've got two under four. One of our little guys is 3.5. The other one is 10 months old, which is crazy to me. It really does go so fast. Like it's not a lie. It really does. And I don't mind when people tell me that because I want to be reminded to be present, which is, side note, a key piece of how I manage my time. Um, but as a mom, as a business owner, as a wife, as someone who also cares about her own self-care and living her life and doing things outside of work, which I also used to be such a workaholic, and all of my identity was wrapped up in just like how many hours I put in, that this has really been a part of me that I had to give myself permission to cultivate. But I love who I am, and I love all the different things that I'm interested in outside of work now too. So um that's what I want to come and talk to you about today, is how I do it. I did a post on Instagram maybe a month ago. I don't know, but I was out. It was like the middle of the day on a some weekday, and I'd done work stuff that morning, but then I was out with our little guy Luke, and I'd done some shopping at Trader Joe's. I was walking in the stroller. Oh, I was like out shipping a Christmas gift too. And it just dawned on me, I know, number one, people love hearing about time and time management. Frankly, I don't believe in time management. I don't think you can manage time. You can manage yourself. But I popped on IG and was like, would you like me to share how I manage my time as a mom, as a wife, as a CEO, doing all the things? And the resounding response was yes. So here we are. Here we are. And I had a funny thing happen, which I'll tell you about in a minute. Before I get into it, if you're listening to this in real time, I'm sure if you're listening to it afterwards, you can probably catch the replay if you register. But we have a very inspired 2-day event coming up January 22nd and 23rd called Elevate 2024, completely free. You can get registered at elisearcher.com/elevate 2024. And I'm really in this mode right now, in this energy I want to bring to you of ascension. And in order to ascend, I want you to think about, it's like a rocket ship taking off, or like a hot air balloon going up. And as I say this, I'm like, I think a hot air balloon drops the sandbags, doesn't it? But it's all about, what do you need to let go of and release and drop in order to ascend? And then from there, you can keep going higher and higher and higher. So it's going to be a really beautiful experience. It's all coming from my heart to yours. I don't know about you, but I feel like 2023 was, man, it was great in a lot of ways. And it felt really like really tough in some other ways. So it was a both and. Anytime it feels tough, though, we know there's something we're being invited to drop, to release, to heal in ourselves so that we can ascend. So always know that everything is always working for you. And I saw that play out in my own life last year, as well as like some of the most beautiful blessings that have ever happened in my life as well. Birth of Luke, Jason getting into his dream medical school, us getting to move up here to Maine and live that out, along with a lot of other amazing things. So anyway, all good. But with that being said, I feel like 2023 gave us all the opportunity to get clarity on, where are we holding ourselves back? What is it that it's time to release, to drop, so that you can ascend and rise to whatever level of sales performance, business revenue, client opportunities, lifestyle that you're craving and really looking for. So that's what the event is going to be about. There's also a lot of things like downloading in me right now for it too, but I'd love to have you there. Again, EliseArcher.com/elevate 2024. So with that being said, let's get into the meat of today's episode. I'm going to take a sip of coffee first. So this episode has evolved as I've been thinking about today, what I want to share with you. And hopefully you enjoy solo episodes. If you're listening, I'm assuming you do. They're way more organic and way more, at least a stream of consciousness than some of the interviews that I do. But I want to always come to you from the heart. And at first I thought, well, let me make a list of my 5 tips for time management. I was like, I don't know, that feels heavy. So then I thought, and I am going to do this. You know what I'll do? I'll look at my calendar for this week and tell you what I've been doing and how how I organize it, and give you like a behind the scenes of look at Elise's calendar and how she does it. So I am going to do that because I think that's kind of cool. And so I really haven't sat here and looked much at it. I'm going to like go through it with you in real time here and share hopefully some good takeaways for you. But as I was sitting down to record, my books fell over. My bookshelf, well, not my whole bookshelf, but I've got a, 2 bookends with a stack of books in the middle sitting behind me. You can't see it on the video right now. The whole thing collapsed and fell over, which doesn't happen. I hadn't been over there messing with it. So I thought, okay, is there something that I'm not thinking of that I need to be aware of for this episode that's universe, spirit, guides, whoever is getting my attention here? And so something really stood out and I picked it up, and it was a great reminder of the number one thing that I so want you to get and hear from this is that the things that you do in your day and how much you do or don't do is not as important as your energy and your state and your feeling as you are doing the things. So this is so critically important. And it took me a really long time to get it as someone who was so addicted to checking the boxes and taking a lot of action and like how fast can I get done? And when I lived and operated that way, I found myself, and maybe a lot like you, maybe you can relate to this, like health issues, anxiety. It was never enough either. Like that's the thing. There was never enough that I was doing. And it wasn't until I started studying a lot of this work that I now bring to you on the podcast and studying energy and frequency and our feeling. Neville Goddard has the book Feeling is the Secret, and why it matters, because it is your point of attraction. It wasn't until I started studying that I started even paying attention to how I was feeling. And now, because I'm so aware that our feeling state generates the extent of the magnetic force that comes out, is going to be Elise's non-scientific description of quantum physics, but it'll be close enough. Because that feeling state determines how magnetized you are, right? Because the heart is the magnet. It's going to determine how effective every action is that you take. And it's also going to determine whether you have to work really, really hard to get to where you want to go, and it's going to take a long time, or whether you can have a thought of something you would love and boom, it shows up. So I'm not here to say that you shouldn't take action in your days. I do. I love taking action. I take quite a bit of action. It's definitely not the hustle action that it used to be. It's far more easy, graceful, refined, but also impactful. And I also give myself permission to really tune into my feeling state. And if I ever am noticing, my heart feels closed, I feel off, this feels like a should. Look, I'm not perfect with this, but I'm getting so much better at it that I know enough to pause and to stop and to say, what's going on? Like, what am I thinking right now that's making me feel like I'm not doing enough, or I'm not good enough, or I should be doing this or that or the other. And to recalibrate and get back into a state of open-heartedness where I feel focused and centered and in my own power. And if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't know what that's like, that's okay. I didn't know what it was like either for a long time. I also didn't know why it mattered. I want you to stay close and go like binge the whole podcast because you'll get it. It's a lot of episodes, but you'll get it. We've got so many other resources on this. You can listen to one of our top ones is the one, gosh, I did almost 2 years ago, my life-changing experience at Dr. Joe Dispenza's retreat, where I talk more about quantum physics and how this works and why it matters for you. So now that I've elevated my level of consciousness in my life, and I know now this is why that book fell off the bookshelf. Because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm about to go into an episode and not talk about this when this is actually the most important thing. So thank you, universe, for that. But the number one thing I care about is how am I feeling? And then beyond that, all right, what is the next action that I can take that's going to move me closer to my goals? And always retuning back into the feeling, the feeling, the feeling. So, so with that being said, that's what matters most. Abraham Hicks says something to the extent of, if we had to live a day, we'd spend as much time as we needed to feel good. And then from that place, we do whatever we had time left for. I love that because I used to be obsessed about my schedule. How much can I cram in? How much can I fit in? Again, like I said, I never paid attention to my feeling state. But the more I practice this, the more I see how real and true it is. And I'll give it just a quick example. And then I'll go into my calendar and I'll share with you what I see and I'll talk through how, the how and the why. But even just yesterday, yesterday was a shorter work day for me, and I held our 10K club group coaching call, did a little bit of work in the morning. And one thing I'll say with that too, you see bebopping all around, and hopefully you can follow me. All right. One thing I want to say about the little bit of work in the morning, and then I'm going to talk about what happened because of my emotional state. I heard this from Bob Proctor. You can get a lot done in 1 minute. And I love that because I used to think, oh, if I'm going to go like, process my inboxes or do that, like I need hours. And so stuff would feel heavy and I would never get it done because I was such a perfectionist about it. And I would think it's all got to be done and crossed off the list, or else what? Or else there was just some nebulous or else. What I've learned now is if I have a quick window and it feels good to go do something, I'm going to go do it. And I'll get a lot done. So I done like a very quick window in the morning of inboxes, check with the team, blah, blah, blah. Then yesterday morning, I was prepping our 10K club group call. Then I went and led the call. It was a 2-hour call. But about an hour and a half after that, I left for the afternoon. And this was maybe around 1:30 to go pick up both my sons from childcare and go take them to the local children's museum. We'd never been here before. It's a really cool local children's museum, and they had like come pet a therapy dog. So that was what my afternoon was. And I was in a really beautiful, energetic, emotional state, feeling very worthy, feeling very abundant, feeling very spirit connected. And from that place, I was thinking about, this is before I left to go pick them up. I was looking at our sales for the week and I was like, oh, I would love to generate X amount more of sales for the week. And I was kind of like, that's it. I don't know how. I would just love this. What do you know? About an hour later, I get a text from my assistant that says speaking opportunity. And the speaking opportunity, total, like not something I've been pitching myself for, not something I knew even existed, inbound from a bureau. And the rate they want to pay is the exact amount that I said I would like to make before the end of the week. So I say that just to demonstrate, and no doubt you've got examples like that too. And maybe if it's not a money thing, it's another thing where you were just feeling good about it. You were light about it. You were easy about it. You said, I would love that. And boom, it came to you. So I do take quite a good bit of action in my day. I don't like sitting still. My husband will say, I love going to bed so that I can wake up in the morning and start my day. I'm a super early riser. I love it. Like I love it. I love it. I love it. And the energy behind it is so, so, so important, because when we're in the energy of already being a vibrational match for our goals, when we're in the energy of appreciation and gratitude and eagerness and excitement, and we have like intact energy around our own power too, um, then not only do we get results from the actions we take, but we can also draw to us things that we're desiring, oftentimes without additional action, or without a lot of additional action. And it's more like a nudge or a desire. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to reach out to this person, or, hey, you just have a thought. I would love this. And boom, there it is. It all depends on how much resistance you do or don't have to the thing. So that is why it's a long story to explain the importance of tuning into your emotional state. Because I know right now, if I had made that desire, and if I had said I would love that, but from a place of separation or lack or not enoughness or even of needing it, it would not have come through like that. So it was from a place of, this would be nice. I would love this. I don't need it, but this would be really fun. And then boom, there it is. So let's take a look at the calendar and let me see what I can tell you that would be helpful. All right, quick sip of coffee, and I'm gonna share what shows up as I look at this calendar. Okay, so one thing I will say, this week is a little different because we're in a transition mode right now with new childcare for Luke. But moving forward in 2 weeks, I will have 3 days a week of childcare for Luke. I do have Jack in school 5, but I also have a lot of flexibility in that, and pick him up early, slash he could stay home one day if we wanted to, slash go on vacation. But so I'm effectively available for meetings, working 3 days a week. Now, those days are not usually 8-hour days either. So I remember when before I had like my real quantum leap experience and went from, 10K months to 100K months so quickly back in February of 2021, I was addicted to work because I thought it was what I had to do. And I had a little, Jack, our oldest, was really little at the time. And I was really in a lot of mom guilt about, how do I balance it all? And I want to grow and run my company, but I've also got this little guy at home, and how do I do this? And one of the mentors who I was working with, um, mom running a multi-million dollar company, and she's mom of 3, she told me she worked 3 to 4 hours a day. And I was like, how? Because I was working all the time, yet making less. So what I learned through that process, and what was so powerful, and I always hire mentors because I want to learn, how do they think? I don't want them to give me a strategy per se, although sometimes that's helpful. I want to know how they think. And what I learned about the level of thinking that's required to ascend and elevate to that level, which I think I embody pretty well in my own life, and I'm always working on elevating there too, is it's a worthiness where you know how valuable your time is. You know, um, you know that the amount you make is not based on how many hours you work, which I get it. It can be tricky if that's the background you come from and you've been paid hourly, you're conditioned in that way. But I want you to start thinking like truly wealthy people. And truly wealthy people, it's not about dollars for hours. It's about service and value, and how much can I provide at scale. So that's it. So learning to think that way has empowered me to be very comfortable. And in fact, 3 days a week feels like a decent chunk. I was doing 2 prior. We got a new nanny who has 3 days a week, and we're going to try this because my leadership needs for my team are growing this year. And before, I used to take meetings with Luke there at home with me. And now I'm just finding it's a bit challenging to do both to the level I want to do. So we're adding in an extra day of childcare for him, um, 1 day a week. But also, again, the days aren't full days. They're probably 5 to 6 hours, 3 days a week as I look at this. Some days are a little longer, some days are shorter. It all depends. But so that's the first thing I think, is really giving yourself permission. Not the first thing, it's one of many things, but one of the things, giving yourself permission to make your own rules and think the way a really wealthy person would think, which is it's not about the dollars per hour, it's about the efficacy of the work that you're doing and the impact of the work you're doing. I was coaching some of our members on the 10K club yesterday because we have a number of women in who just transitioned from corporate into running their own business. And it is such a mindset shift when you're your own boss. I get it. It's such a mindset shift. And I still will catch for myself from time to time, like, oh, I should be doing this or I should be doing that. And what I've learned is there's no shoulds, my friend. There's no shoulds. The bottom line is, are you hitting your goals for you and are you enjoying the process? That's it. So those are the only, again, I don't think there's any shoulds, but those are the things that matter. In my opinion, that's what I care about. And I care a lot more about enjoying the process than I used to. That's like I love achieving goals. Like I love that too, but enjoying the process is critical and it will help you achieve bigger, faster goals. So looking back at this calendar, let's see what else might be helpful to you. So I do have my morning routine time blocked out. Um, Something I'm actively practicing even just this week, and this is kind of new, but letting that time be really expansive for me. So I used to do early morning, like I'm up, I'm studying, I'm meditating, I'm working out, and then I've got a 90-minute work block before the boys get up. That was always the goal, but littles wake up at 4 a.m. and things are different. So it's not that like cut and dry. All right. It's not that cut and dry. So you got to drop perfectionism with this. But what I noticed this week, and I stopped and I asked myself, I was like, am I enjoying these work blocks early in the morning? Or is there something else that I need? And what came to me, like sometimes I really do, and I do love getting things done early and then having a lot of freedom the rest of the day. That's how I'm wired. That may not be how you're wired. So always tune into you. But right now, what I felt like I'm needing is really expansive self-care time pouring into me. Because I noticed I was like, my patience was getting a little shorter with the boys or with myself or with Jason. And I was like, that's so interesting. Why would I be running out of patience with them? Now, granted, there's a lot of laughable scenarios where one might need to be Mother Teresa or Gandhi or the Pope to be able to be completely in our center during the whole thing. I'm working on it. But I was like, you know what? It's the whole put your oxygen mask on first thing. I'm needing and craving more expansive self-care. So I took the 90-minute work block out for the mornings and this, actually not all this week, the past few days, I've really practiced longer meditation, longer yoga, giving myself a much greater chunk of time to like read and study and journal in the morning, which I'm loving. So it ends up being about a 3-hour total block in the morning when I'm doing that. And then from there, just trusting that the things that really matter for work are going to get done. Now, I have a checklist. I have a list of things that every day um, do help the business move forward and are important for the business to move forward. So I'm making sure that those are getting done, or if there's something that I'm not able to do that I'm looping in a team member to help with, etc. So I don't death grip it the way that I used to, but I do think it's really important to say these are the things that every day it's like your daily KPIs, your daily, I call it my success habits. But here's the thing, I built them from the end vision accomplished. So Elise, as this level of CEO, what is she doing every day? And that's what I do. Um, so that's that. And that's really powerful. But this week I have practiced doing those not as early in the morning, and that's been good for me. That's actually been really good. So I'm letting myself continue to do this. I want you to hear with all of this, this is something else I was coaching the group on yesterday. There's no one right way to do it. There really isn't. You've got to tune in for you of what feels good. And you also, I would invite you to give yourself permission that what used to work may need to evolve with you as you evolve. So even for me, as I've elevated my consciousness a lot, even just over the past month now, and like seen myself more and more and more as a leader, it has the things that I used to think I needed to do have really shifted. And I've gotten so much more comfortable with delegating, with not dropping things like they're not going to happen, but me not doing things and empowering others on my team to do it. And it's just a level of consciousness and raising your level of consciousness and continuing to do that. And you'll notice that the things that felt right to do at one stage aren't going to feel right to do at another stage, or maybe depending on your energy cycles. Maybe you're in, if you're listening to this and you're a woman, biologically a woman, then if you're in a menstrual phase, you're not going to have as much energy as if you're in a luteal phase, where you're probably going to want to do a lot of detail work and spreadsheets and all of that. And so just learning to tune in to your energy, to your cycle, to where you are, and that those same energy flows apply to men as well, just on different timelines. Really learning to honor how you're wired and who you are and what works for you is so important. So there's that. So I do, as the way I have it structured right now is I start off my week on Mondays with team meetings. And those are fun and they're relatively short and sweet. If we ever had a time where we were like, we're supposed to meet, but there's nothing, that's rare that there's not something to meet about. But if that was the case, I would cancel the meeting. I do not believe in having meetings just because they're on the calendar at all. Let me see what else would be helpful for you. Okay, here's something else I want to say. And if you are watching the video, yes, I'm wiping my nose. It's cold and dry here, and I've had a runny nose the past few days. So it is what it is. But we keep it real. Something else that I would say, and that I've really given myself permission to do and is so empowering, is giving yourself permission to take things off of your calendar that aren't going to move the needle for you, that don't light you up, where your body constricts when you look at them. Now, there's a difference between something being misaligned and a limiting belief. We talked about this at our group call yesterday. I feel like I'm bringing so much of that here too. Um, Sometimes we look at something and we want to cancel it because we feel fear. Oh, I hope that prospect doesn't show up on a sales call because I'm nervous about asking for the sale. Or, ooh, maybe I should cancel that podcast interview because I'm not ready yet. Whatever the thing is, it's not what I'm talking about. That's a limiting belief. What I'm talking about here is something that, with love for yourself and great energetic boundaries, is not the best and highest use of your time. And you're going to have to get comfortable caring less about disappointing others and caring more about honoring yourself. And so if there is something on my calendar going into a day where I look at it and I'm like, oh, that's really not a great use of my time, or oh, it just feels like a drag. Number one, I am big on honoring your commitments. Check in sooner before you say yes to something to really see, would I want to do this if I had to do this thing right now? And if not, it's probably a no. But from there, I do give myself permission. Things shift, things adjust, etc. I give myself permission to reschedule, to drop, to rearrange as needed. So giving yourself that same permission too, remembering that the only person you really don't want to care, that you don't want to disappoint, is yourself. That's what I like. At the end of the day, it's you and you in this lifetime, right? So being there for you in whatever way you need to be with your calendar. I'll say one thing and then I'll add on perhaps another. We'll see. The one other thing I was going to say with that, my former colleague and friend Rory Vaden talked about this. I think I've talked about this on another time episode, but I'll just share this here, where he talked about at the one of his practices for time management was at the beginning of the week, wipe everything off your calendar and then let it all fight to get back on, and see what actually shows up to fight to get it on. Now, I think that may have been somewhat metaphorical. Knowing him, I know this, he doesn't literally take everything off his calendar at the beginning of the week, but it's that type of energy of what would be important enough for my time that it would fight to get back on my calendar if I wiped it all clean at the beginning of the week. And that's how you can kind of know what the priorities are in art. The final piece that I think I'll say with this that's been so important for me, especially as a mom, is flexibility, especially in hours. And I don't just mean how many hours a day I work, but I also mean the when of when I'm working. So as a woman who was in corporate for so many years, and then I, when I was my own boss for the first time, I was very much a like slave driver type of energy. And I existed that way for quite some time. That's also when, by the way, I was stuck financially. So just notice the notice the energy. I was constricting and restricting myself. So I was also constricting and restricting my income. But so I also am I've learned to be very flexible on when I am working. So because of the boys' schedules and because I love my work. Like if I could work all the time and be happy with it, I really could. I love my work. It's one of my happy places. It's important to me. I love what I do. I love my clients. I care about this. I care about you. So this is not like oh, Elise isn't a hard worker type. Like that's more my identity. I've had to shift my consciousness to allow myself to rest and take breaks and do other things. So, so I'll just say that. But because in addition to really growing our company and excelling at what I do and having really sizable goals for the business for what I want to achieve, in addition to that, I care deeply about being a present mom. And I care deeply about my boys. And I love being a mom. And I was one of those women where I always knew, I always felt comfortable at work, but I wasn't a woman. I'll just be so transparent. I wasn't a woman where like I knew my life purpose was to be a mom. I wasn't. When I became a mom, I was like, oh, this is a whole new level. And this is very special. And it's just continued to grow over the not quite 4 years now that I've been a mom. So I care deeply about that. And I want to create beautiful memories and have lots of time with my kids. So I understand it. If you feel like you're in that kind of in between, like, oh, I feel pulled in both directions, it's a thing. Like I'll acknowledge that. But I've given myself permission to say, what are the things that really need to get done in order to achieve my goals at work? And by the way, if you haven't read Do Less by Kate Northrup, phenomenal book. Phenomenal book to help you hone in on what is that 20% of things you do that move the needle most for you. And then you just start doing just those. So really getting clarity on that. And then also, if you can, giving yourself flexibility on when and how it happens. So for example, I'm even looking at my calendar right now for this week. Now, normally it is rare, like very, very rare that I have a meeting on a weekend. But I've got this weekend, as I record, I've got a private client intensive on a Saturday. And it's because this woman's schedule, she's amazing. If she's listening to this, hi, I'm really excited for our intensive. She's a teacher and her hours during the weekdays didn't work with mine, and she bought a private intensive for me, and I was like, I'm gonna make this work. So we're gonna meet for an hour and a half on Saturday, and that's gonna be work time for me, and I'm happy to do it because I'm also filling my cup all these other times, and I'm at the latest, uh, picking up Jack, our oldest, sometime between 3:30 and 4:30, although I shifted it this week to be by 3:30 at the latest, I'm getting him. And then, like I said, like yesterday, I got him at 2 and I'm having afternoon time with them. So it's different. It's always different. But I think a few things that really matter for me are being present with what I'm doing in the moment and trusting that there's more than enough time to get done everything that matters. So you do have to have an abundance mindset with this. My clients who are listening to this, you'll know you've heard me say this. If you haven't heard this before, it's so true. If you are in overwhelm or time scarcity, that same energy applies to your money. You're going to experience financial scarcity because you're in a mode and a vibe of not enough. So remembering that, and when you choose, if you're listening to this, no doubt you want greater time freedom and money freedom. So start with some time freedom. Start with allowing yourself to be present for what you're doing. Start with the belief that there's always more than enough time for what matters. Start with the belief that you can bend time and space with your energy and your way of being, and that the things that really matter always get done. I've noticed that, like, there's a lot of things every day I don't get done. So it's not a, I don't want to say perfect because I don't think perfect would be completing every single thing on your to-do list every day. That would take me probably months with what I have on my list right now. So if we, and it's funny, even as I say that, I'm like, yeah, that would probably take months. So there can be this, especially if you identify as a high performer or maybe recovering perfectionist, there could be this thinking that if I could just get it all done on my list, that would be a perfect day. Probably not going to happen if your list is anything like mine. But what are the core, like right now I've got, and if you've heard me say I don't keep to-do lists, well, right now I am. I've switched it up. I've got a calendar. I've also got a to-do list. Um, so again, I give myself permission to ebb and flow, and I may get off the to-do list again, but right now this is when I need to organize my brain when I get home in the mornings to work. So I've got a list of 7 things for today, and I'm going to do as many of them as I can. Recording this podcast is one of them. And whatever doesn't get done, I will decide, what do I want to do with it? Do I want to move it to tomorrow? Does it need to be done at all? Can I delegate it to someone else, right? There's all these different ways of doing it, but I don't get into the guilt, blame, shame game around it the way that I used to. And instead, it's more like, I care about my state. I'm going to come full circle here. I care about my state. Was I open today? Did I enjoy my day? Was I there for myself? Did I love myself? Did I show up for myself in that I did follow through on the things I said I was going to follow through on? So it's that type of energy. And from that place, you're very present. And it's not so much about trying to just check the boxes and do the things as much as it is in this moment. What's the most powerful intention and energy I can bring to this? And from that place, what's the most powerful action I can take? So I hope that helps. I feel like as I wrap this up, there's probably a lot of follow-up questions someone could have from this. So if you have follow-up questions, send me a DM. I'm at Elise Archer on all social. I've really been looking at on the podcast what people like the most. And I found like almost all of our top episodes, and we've had some amazing guests. Almost all of our most downloaded episodes have been solo episodes where I'm sharing from the heart like this. So if there's more that you want to know as follow-up to this, if there's anything I didn't explain as deeply as you would like, send me a DM. I may do a follow-up episode, and or I can also just DM you back with some thoughts. But those are my thoughts for you for today. I hope that helps. Thank you, as always, for being a listener. Again, if you're listening in real time, go get registered for Elevate 2024, elisearcher.com/Elevate 2024, coming up January 22nd and 23rd. I love you. I'm grateful for you, and I'll see you on